Hey, Spuddies, PotatoMcWhiskey here, and welcome to Civilization 6 as Arabia. Where we left off, we were in the process of getting a few spaceports online because we do want to go through the space race, and we are going to be having a little bit of a trouble with climate change because it's going to trigger in the next little while, and then meteors are going to start dropping. So we need to have multiple spaceports to be able to exit the atmosphere and get our spaceships off planet. We are also in the process of conquering Japan, and I'm doing this for two basic reasons. The first one is, the more cities that we have, the better defended we are from any potential meteor strikes, and we can build more spaceports and stuff like that. And the second reason is that it's just really, really fun to kill someone in a game of Civ 6. So that's really that's the only justification you ever really need in a game of Civ 6 to attack someone is I'm gonna have fun killing you. But I do think it is time for yet more spaceports. Every single spaceport that we can get out will buy us time against the apocalypse, and that's the most important thing when you're in the late game, is the race against the apocalypse, because when those meteors start dropping, shit gets hairy real fast. The nice thing too is Japan actually happened to be the person who was most likely to win a culture victory. So me taking him out, I've basically eliminated the best chance the AI had to actually beat me this game. Sendai is flipping independent, but we should have enough time to take Fukuoka before that becomes a huge problem. I could upgrade my bombers, but I feel like losing a turn on your bombers isn't worth it at this stage of the game because every turn is massive. And while fighters can attack cities here, you'll see they're going to do about 10% of the city's health. You're far better off using fighters to attack units, because look how much damage it does to this cuirassier. Boom. He's practically dead, and then we could use the city shot to finish him off. I'd like to take Takamatsu. I'm going to start using my artillery for that, so I'll get them into position. I'll pop you back to Nalanda for now and pop you over here. The nice thing is my artillery are good enough now to move and shoot, which makes me very happy because they have +1 movement from, I believe that's coming from logistics. Once your artillery have 3 movement, it allows them to move and shoot. So it's one of the hidden bonuses that artillery can get. It's very, very powerful and very, very useful. And that applies to all siege units. Normally siege units can't attack and move, but once you give them +1 movement from any source, that's it. I think my spy... Yeah, look at that. A spy from the Japanese Empire was killed because they were trying to steal money from this city, which means I got a kill on their spy and I leveled up my own spy. I'm going to take... License to kill seems fine. Basically, just leveling him up is actually fine to me because your spies become more effective just from leveling up. You don't actually have to have a promotion in order for them to be more useful. Japan is begging me for peace, but I absolutely under no circumstances will I take peace. We have advanced ballistics, which gives us access to anti-air guns. I haven't seen enough aircraft from the AI to justify that, so I don't think I'll worry about that. I want to step forward here so I can start bombarding the city. This cuirassier is in a bit of an awkward spot for me to take on. I don't want to get shot by this city. Do I have a unit I could use? I could use a bomber, but the bomber is best used on Fukuoka because of the sheer amount of damage they do to cities compared to anything else. And I can almost take that city with my helicopter here. I should be able to nab that next turn. So I'll just kill the cuirassier with my artillery instead. Let's have a look at these cities and see if there's any tile improvements I can really do to them. There's probably a lot. Yeah, I think Nalanda definitely needs a builder. There's at least 3 tiles worth improving. And getting those tiles improved is going to be a big part of our late game excellence. I'm also trying to establish my religion in all these new cities because you actually take a negative to your loyalty for cities that aren't following your founded religion. So 3 religion is pretty damn good. It is a bit of an open question as to whether I should go for more research labs now. At this point, I think really what I need to do, these newly occupied cities, is optimize them. So getting things like this uranium online is a big part of what I'm going to do. So I may crack out 2 builders in here to kind of filter things around. The city of Okayama is never really going to be useful. So I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just buy a granary in it and then I'll get myself a builder just to keep it busy. It's sort of a similar problem with Sendai. The city just doesn't have enough population to justify anything. So I'm going to force work some food in here to try and grow the city. But the real problem is the lack of housing in Sendai. It means things like a sewer would be pretty important to get that up to 7 pop. 7 pop isn't massive, but it might get us somewhere. And then if I can get a neighborhood down, ideally somewhere with at least 4 housing. There's a 5 housing spot here, which I think I will grab. Although then again, the appeal of this tile is likely not to hold for much longer. So I'll probably just crack it on the coastline here. This city's major problem is just the lack of housing. So let's convert Sendai. That'll give me a little bit more time with my loyalty in here. It's only dropping by 2.2 now, which means I have more than 6 turns. I have like 30 turns. No, more like 15 turns, 16, 18 maybe. It looks like there might be some new stuff we can buy. Could buy a bunch of horses, but nobody really wants horses. I could buy Great Works. 3 culture isn't bad, to be honest, so I'll go ahead and grab that. And the AI are also willing to sell me Diplo Favor, although that's not what I want. I will go ahead and sell my tobacco for raw gold, ideally. Jesus, look at this flooding that's happened in here. Yeah, so this is one of the advantages you have when you're playing in the apocalypse mode. If you're first to industrialization and you can be the one to start flooding the world by pumping out CO2, it also is likely to mean that you're the first person to computers to get flood barriers, and so everyone else is going to be suffering massively from the coastal flooding. You can see here tons of tiles have already flooded over here. More tiles are flooding over here, because I believe when you're playing on the apocalypse mode, more of the coastline is sort of flagged for flooding. Let's keep stealing gold from Canada. They want to buy my Great Works. I really don't want to sell my Great Works. My Great Works are one of my best sources of culture right now. We have conservation now, so we've access to resource management if we start running out of aluminum again. I have access to communism. I think the big late game thing I would maybe pick up is probably globalization for the International Space Agency, or possibly social media for collective activism to be able to get more culture. One of those two, I think, is the right choice. But they share Cold War as a prerequisite, and I'll be in a better position to make that decision in the near future. So I'll probably take Cold War and Space Race, and then see how we stand, and we'll make a decision between globalization and social media. Tokyo is doing really well. It has nearly 60 production. What else do I want to do with this city? I could build another spaceport. I may actually grab myself. Actually, I don't really have a very good industrial zone in here. I mean, there's a +3 industrial zone, which isn't terrible. I think I'll yoink a tile or two, like this and this. I do have conservation, don't I? Yeah, I have conservation, so I could put a forest here. But what I'll likely do is do the Manhattan Project in Tokyo. We're sitting on 3 envoys. I could take suzerainty of Mitla. I don't think I need suzerainty of Mitla. Taruga is okay to take suzerainty of. I might just grab suzerainty of Akkad just for the sake of it. Bologna, I'm feeling pretty bad about not having suzerainty of. Chinguetti would be quite good, because I am sending quite a few trade routes internationally. It's a lot of faith. It's hard to get them, though. Zanzibar would give me a ton of amenities, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up Zanzibar. That's like 12 amenities across my empire, and considering I'm going to be stretched for amenities in the late game because I'm expanding rapidly, that'll do the job for me. I'm going to deploy my fighter over the city of Sendai so I can have some vision. There's a pair of Japanese bombers, what looks like doing some damage to my empire, but I will take out Fukuoka this turn. I'll get my helicopter in here to nab the city. That'll get him a promotion. We'll keep the city. I think I'm going to start building a little bit of renewable power. I'm a little bit worried about just how much CO2 is going into the atmosphere, and I'd like to delay that process by a few turns if I could. So I'll probably also be switching over to nuclear power in Amazon, and the second that we have nuclear power plants researched. Now here's what I'll do. I'll attack with this artillery, and then I'll combine these 2 artillery together. I'll move you forward a tile, and then we'll shoot this city. Perfect. So good progress being made here. Ooh, took a pretty hefty hit there. I should be able to use my fighter to help with that. But anyway, there's nuclear fission. We do have a source of uranium, and uranium is an incredibly efficient power source. So I'm going to immediately convert to nuclear power in Amazon, even at the detriment of delaying my spaceport. Right now, this thing here is pumping out 7 coal worth of power. And if we check the coal power plant, I don't remember how much CO2 that is. Yeah, I think every coal is worth 4 or something. Like, coal is ridiculous. Whereas if you consider uranium, it's way, way, way less bad. Yeah, it's like for every 10 coal I'm burning, I'm getting 32 units of CO2 in the atmosphere, which is just not good enough. I need to make the switch. In fact, I'm probably burning coal in some other places as well. Nalanda, I reckon I should switch to uranium power as well. So that's immediately what we're going to do in here as well. Let's start hammering Tamutsu. I'll pull this artillery back. I'll use my fighter to kill this cuirassier. I'll promote this artillery as well. Boom. And then I'll continue to hammer the city from here. I got a great artist, but I don't have anywhere to put their artwork, so I'll just put them to sleep somewhere. And if you're wondering why I want to slow down the global warming, it's because when the global warming reaches the maximum phase, that's when the meteors start dropping. So by slowing down the amount of emissions that I'm putting out, I'll buy myself a few extra turns before my cities will start getting hit by the asteroids. I think we might be able to conquer this city this turn. So we'll give them an L blast like so, and then I'll get my helicopter to cross my empire and take this city out. Probably reaching now towards the end of what we actually want. Do I have a unit around that I could upgrade to give my cities better combat strength? Because right now my city combat strength is only 33 or 33, we might say. If I upgrade this lad to a machine gun and then come back to the city's combat strength will be 78, which is much, much stronger, because your city's combat strength is based on the strongest ranged combat unit that you have. So that's why it's always good to have just one crossbowman, one field cannon, one machine gun. It makes your cities just do a significant amount more damage. So looking at Yokohama as a city, it's got good housing. It's got a reasonable surplus of food. I think part of the problem is that it's occupied, so it's not growing very well. But I would say the city has like a good enough surplus of food between these farms and these plantations that I probably don't need much more food. I will put a farm triangle here, I reckon, because there's already a farming resource, so I may as well take advantage of that. But otherwise, the majority of this is going to be lumber mills and mines from now on, and maybe the occasional solar panel, depending on the tile itself. We'll start the Manhattan project in Tokyo. That's going to take 16 turns. However, I might be able to speed that up somehow. Let me see here. If I grab these lumber mills, I added 3 more lumber mills, so that took 3 turns off. And I reckon that's the best I'm going to do. And if you're wondering, like, what's the logical connection between, emitting carbon dioxide and meteor showers? There isn't one. They just wanted to have like a flashy way to cause the apocalypse. Because it's kind of the New Frontier Pass, which was the latest expansion for Civilization 6, was really focused on kind of a fantasy. Where maybe things are a little bit less plausible. Things are not necessarily true to history. And this was actually something that I think I advocated for. I said I'd like to see them kind of go in a more fantasy direction with some of the expansions. I think that was about 2 or 3 years ago. And so maybe that's partially why they felt a bit more brave to do these kind of silly things where you have things like heroes, you have things like the apocalypse, you have things like, cults and doom cults and all this sort of stuff. And I don't know, I think it just, a little bit of fantasy, I think makes the game a little bit more interesting. It adds a bit of dynamicism to it, We have our very first spaceport completed in Cairo. Now, this city has incredible growth, but it's lacking in production. So I think one builder in here and then some tile switching perhaps would be the sus. So we'll quickly grab myself a builder in 2 turns. Actually, I'm going to launch the Earth satellite and I'll build the builder in Jeddah instead because it's still miles away from doing its spaceport. I'm going to yoink that lumber mill and yoink this farm too. Right, I think this is going to be the last Japanese city that I take. The city of Kyoto. So we're going to bomb the hell out of it first, and then we'll step forward with our artillery to bombard it. And I think 1 turn from now, we should be able to nab it. Tagamutsu is kind of another one of these like semi-useless cities that I've managed to grab. I mean, it has really, really good production, don't get me wrong, but that's about all that it has going for it. I reckon some of the districts that it had in here must have flooded, otherwise the city would have been in a much better position. But at this point, to save a single antiquity site doesn't seem worth it to me. So instead, I'll just work on a sewer in here and then have a think about what I actually want to do with it. So all of Nalanda's tiles are now improved. So let's have a look at Fukuoka. There's definitely things like the silk here that we could improve. Oh, we're taking a little bit of damage from these boats. Another couple bombings of the city should do the job. And I'll use my fighter to take out that ironclad. And then boom, the city of Kyoto is mine. And I've pretty much kicked Japan off of this continent. I basically doubled the size of my empire in terms of cities and completely crippled my greatest competitor. I don't know if it's worth it to continue this combat. I could completely wipe Japan off the face of the planet, but I would reckon that would be like an awful lot of work for very little gain. So I'll probably piece them out next turn and then look for some other angle. Fukuoka definitely needs a farm triangle to help the city grow. It'll need a farm triangle and a neighborhood. So I'll get to work on both of those things. So things like builders are going to be key for that plan. It is quite difficult to make decisions about what to do with newly conquered cities. I will admit that happily. Because like at this point of the game where you start conquering cities, you've got like about 500 things going on in your head. So it could be tough. But that's the nice thing about games like Civilization 6 is that there's no time limit on your turn in single player. So you get to think about things. All right, boom, there's nuclear fusion. We will want to do Operation Ivy in the near future. However, we do have to finish the Manhattan Project first. And I reckon the target of our nuclear adventures might be Eleanor or whoever... However, who has caused my wrath the most this game? I feel like it was Eleanor. Eleanor really messed me up in the early game and completely screwed me. And there's also a couple of city-states we could liberate from her. But I definitely want to be researching smart materials now. Ideally, I would have actually already finished launching the Earth satellite. And ideally, I would also be feeding builders directly into this here. But I actually completely forgot to get the Royal Society. So I'll get to work on that now. Just completely slipped my mind. Right, we'll put a farm here and then another farm here, and that's because every farm that you have adjacent to a farm will increase the food of all adjacent farms by +1. So if you have 2 farms next to each other, each farm will get an extra +1 food. If you have 3 farms all touching each other, each farm is actually worth 3 food. 1 base food, +1 for each farm. So this gives us a really, really good food muscle, essentially. I don't know if you play Bridge Constructor. This is like the strong muscle of your city that helps you get enough population to actually be useful. So having a farm triangle is good. And in the late game, you could put them on hills. I prefer to put them on flatland. However, putting them on hills isn't bad because at least the hills have a little bit of production. Let's talk now to Japan and we'll say, listen, buddy, right, it's time for peace. Give me everything you have. I want it all and I want it now. So I'll take all of his money. I'll take at least 20 Diplo favor because you can never take more than 20 from the AI. I'll take every ounce of gold he has. I'll take every great work that he is willing to give me. I will take it. Boom. It's ours now. 734 grievances against us. Would you like an embassy? We're happy to allow you to construct an embassy. Oh, you've just conquered half my civilization. Would you like to open a diplomatic office in our empire? Right. So we took them for everything they're worth. And now all these cities are like legitimately mine. I wonder how well Korea is doing actually this game. Let's have a look. Are you even doing the space race yet? Oh, Montezuma is actually ahead of me in the space race. Fair play to you, Montezuma. However, oh Jesus, actually there's a few people here. Pedro is beating me as well. I'm actually last to the space race here. I did delay my spaceports. Now I should be first, as I am in everything. I should be first eventually, but it'll just take a little bit of time. I think I can put my airplanes to sleep now. I don't need them for a little while. I'm being denounced by Poland, but they can stay mad. They're not anywhere near me, so they can't do anything to me. Is anyone really surprised that Poland is denouncing someone who killed their smaller neighbor? So we got our nuclear power plant in here. Now, one of the big advantages of the nuclear power plant is that it's much more efficient in terms of resources. So we're only using 2 uranium compared to the nearly 7 coal that we were burning. Actually, Tokyo needs a bunch of renewable energy. I'm going to just deprioritize this mechanized infantry and instead I'm going to grab myself a builder in here to try and get a little bit of renewable. But yeah, in Amazon, we're going to look here at the nuclear power plant. So the nuclear power plant gives every city within 4 tiles, it gives them +4 production and +3 science. So that's a huge amount of science. You think this power plant here is hitting 6 cities. It's hitting Amazon, Baghdad, Aleppo, Cairo, Jeddah, and Homs. So that's 6 times 4 production. Maths is difficult. That's like 24 production. 6 times 3 science. That's 18 science. These are incredibly efficient buildings, which is why I think you should probably try to get like a industrial zone every game that hits like 4 to 5 cities because they're just efficient. Now you might say there's an opportunity cost for going for them. I would agree with you there. You don't have to get your industrial zones. You can actually get away with not building them, but I do think they're efficient. Jesus, Montezuma's already nearly done with the moon landing. Of course. Right, I'm going to try and vote this down pretty heavily. I think I'll go with 9 because I really just don't want a war right now with the whole world. Not until I have nuclear weapons. Once I have nuclear weapons, they can come at me, bro. But until then, I'd like to keep any emergencies on the down low. We have the space race now. It could be good to plug an integrated space cell, but not many of my cities have encampments. World's Fair has gone through, and I actually did win it, so I got 100 great people points across the board. I'm curious if there's a great person that I really want. Well, I definitely want Carl Sagan, and I will also grab Mary Catherine Goddard, because she gives you +1 diplomatic visibility with all civilizations, which is essentially equivalent to getting +3 combat strength against all civilizations. And I don't remember how the combat strength calculations work out. I actually need to get a video and like do a video on that so people can like understand it more thoroughly. But roughly speaking, +7 combat strength is 50% more, +7 or +10 combat strength is 50% more damage, and then +17 combat strength is 100% more damage, and then +30 combat strength is 200% damage. That's roughly how the numbers work out. So a +3 combat strength boost for every single person in the entire game from diplomatic visibility is massive. It's a massive amount of combat strength. Consider how many situations that's going to be applying in where I'm taking less damage and doing more damage. I'd actually really like to do a biosphere tourism run. That seems like really exciting to me. I'm likely going to pick up all of the science and culture I need. So I'll probably just grab social media so I can get that little bit of extra culture from collective activism, and then I'll pick up globalization. So we converted to nuclear power over here as well. That's giving me even more production and using even less uranium. I will want to find another source of uranium though, because I'm currently burning all of my uranium in nuclear reactors. So if I could grab another copy, it would be great. And it looks like most of it spawned like in really awkward places, like really, really far out. I might actually be able to grab this one. It's really tough. Yeah, there's not really a lot of uranium on the map, and I hit basically the only one. So it might be hard for me to get nuclear bombs this game. You don't need them though, so should be fine. I can use renewables to make up the difference. So the city of Kyoto is in relatively okay nick. It has most of its fishing boats online, which is good. Did it ever build a harbour? It never built a harbour. I would have definitely built a harbour in this city. So I think a sewer is the right call until I can get a harbour. I'm going to hold on to Carl Sagan. He generates 3,000 science towards space race projects, but the Earth satellite is only 900, whereas I believe the Mars colony is 3,000, and then the moon landing is, I want to say 1,800. Whatever it is, we don't need to use him immediately, so I'll hold on to him because I don't think his thing overflows. Yokohama is now looking much better than it used to. We've got a lot more tiles improved. We've plenty of food, loads of production. Now this is starting to look like a city where I could get a spaceport in a reasonable time and it could contribute to my win condition. If you're looking for a quick tip, that's it. Potatoes quick tips. I'd like text to appear on the screen, and as I say that, we're gonna harvest the deer, because camps only give you 1 food, 1 production. If you harvest the deer outside of the tundra, deer always spawn on forest. So you harvest the deer and then you put a lumber mill on it, right? So we harvest the deer, boom, and then next turn we'll put a lumber mill on it, and we'll have a 1 food 4 production tile, which is really, really good. Build ourselves a geothermal plant here in Tokyo. That'll give us a little bit of local power, and then I think a couple of solar cells will do the job. I'll vote 5 times for myself in the trade policy outcome. I'll just throw whatever spare Diplo favor I have there into myself as well. And I'll say trading with scientific city-states is the best move because they're the most popular ones. Unlikely that I win all 3 of these, but we'll give it a go. It's a mega colossal eruption. Lovely. Right inside amazing. Pedro won that one, Eleanor won that one, and religious city-states. So we won none of them, which is a bit unfortunate. But we did get error score from researching smart materials, which is the end game technology. This, once someone has researched this, I would consider us now officially into the last 50 turns of the game. The second that this is researched, the clock is ticking on the game being over. My rabbit is eating the floor. It's really distracting. She likes to bite it and then pull it. She's not actually eating. I don't think Takamatsu is going to build a spaceport soon enough to really participate in the space race. So probably the best thing I can do in here is just spam builders to feed into other space races, into spaceports rather. Right, let's pop down a solar farm here. And now the city of Tokyo is completely powered via renewables. Geothermal and the solar power plant doing the trick. I think it would be kind of cool if the world had like a little bit of hemisphere influence on things. Like maybe towards the center of the world, solar power produces 4 electricity. And then you get up to like the north and southern half of things, and then it's 3. And then you get all the way to the edge. Or like maybe it's like 3 in here in the very, very center. And then it's like 2 as you get a little bit more north. And then once you're up like the far, far, far north, it's like 1. Although then again, I actually don't know how badly latitude affects the productivity of solar power. So that's a bit of an open question to me anyway, because I just don't know. So yeah, now you can see we've got a 1 food, 5 production tile where that deer used to be, which is better than a camp. Camps are good, don't get me wrong, but really Okayama just isn't going to grow fast enough for that to be relevant. Wait, did I never research harbors? Oh my god, I never researched harbors. That's hilarious. That's actually hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah, so with our 1,000 signs per turn, we just picked up celestial navigation, which means I can finally build harbors. I can't believe I completely forgot to just research that. I am going to centralize all of my trade routes into my capital now, because that's where I want all my production to be. So anytime a trade route needs to be renewed, it will be moved into my capital. So yeah, let's do a couple more spaceports over here. Again, purely just to make sure that if I get hit by a... words are hard, okay? If I get hit by a meteor in some of my core cities and it destroys a couple of spaceports, it's not the end of the world. I will survive. I will stay alive. I have like so much faith, but that's mostly going to be used for great scientists and great engineers of a reasonable, persuasion. We got our spaceport in Baghdad. I reckon... Builder. If we can build up a supply of builders, we'll be able to launch a ton of projects really, really fast. We've got a neighborhood in Sendai. The city does not have very good growth prospects. I mean, they're okay. It has 3 food tiles, so it'll do okay. It's 48 production already, actually, which is kind of like not bad at all. I reckon we go for the food market in here to try to grow the city a little bit more. Growth, I've become a much bigger fan of growth in this game. For a long time, I thought growth was a bit crap. But I've kind of seen the light now, and I can see the error of my ways. Boom, there is the Earth satellite, which is going to completely reveal the planet to me. So we found like a ton of new natural wonders, like Paiti. I don't know why it's not. There you go. Paiti is all the way over here. We've got Pantanal, all that sort of jazz. So we know where everything is. And now if we search for uranium again, there'll probably be like 10 copies and we'll know exactly where they are. Yeah, there's one here, one here, one here. Yeah, they're all in these like really awkward, hard to get locations. None of them are really viable for us to get except for that one that we managed to nab. The only one I would maybe consider trying for, but that won't work. I'd have to get a settler through her territory. I mean, maybe it's worth a try to get a little bit of extra uranium. And we'll use our gold, right? Actually, my settlers are very cheap. If I were to get a settler and an escort for that settler, I reckon we would use a machine gun, combine them together, just get there as fast as you can. So I have a couple of spaceports now done, so I want to look around, and I think my capital is still my most productive city. And the moon landing is 1,500 production, so we're going to get to work on that. 12 turns. But we now have the ability to feed builders into our spaceports because we finished our tier 3 government building. So that'll actually be able to be brought down significantly. And I'm going to be spending money to buy builders in my Liang city to speed these up even more. So we're actually really on the home stretch now. And I'm building like endless supplies of builders to be able to finish these projects ASAP. Let's go ahead and grab Pingala with 30% space program. That'll come in handy in the near future. So make sure we're building a few ski resorts as well, because I believe ski resorts now give the owning city +1 amenity. I think that was one of the updates they did. Yeah, provides an amenity. So that's pretty handy to be able to get an extra amenity in a few cities. So mountains are now quite good in the late game for that kind of thing. Right, we have access to giant death robots, but unfortunately we don't have the uranium. Am I within range to maybe get... I could maybe get this uranium here. That would be a long, long journey through unfamiliar and hostile territory. You know what? We'll give it a go. I'll get mutual open borders with this lad. I'll sell off some resources. I have so many spares. I don't know where I got whales. I think maybe that's from like a Japanese city. But I'm going to look for as much raw gold as I can get from all these AIs. And looks like we're getting a pretty good deal on that. And then I'll go ahead and buy myself a settler, link these guys together, and send them over here to see if we can grab that uranium. Take a long time to get there. We may never get there. Shah Jahan. I don't think I have a wonder that I really want to build But passing on this guy might not be the best move. So I'll go ahead and pick him up anyway. Go ahead and feed another builder into my space project. Boom, brought that down another turn. So essentially feeding builders into your project kind of basically shaves off roughly a turn every time you do it. So it's pretty valuable. It's pretty valuable to do it if you can. We got our neighborhood in Fukuoka, and this city actually has very good surplus food on the order of 15 per turn, which is kind of a crazy amount of surplus food at this stage of the game. Pretty much any stage of the game that's a really good surplus. So I don't think it needs much more on any of those fronts. I think the thing to do here would be to get the temple and then get the research building, the stupa here for amenities. I love playing with high amenities. I don't know, it's just really fun to me. We'll insert another builder into here. That's down to 5 turns now. Everything is coming up Millhouse. How is the world going? We're about to enter into the second last phase of climate change. And I think I may be able to win just as the apocalypse happens. We made the switch to nuclear and renewables at like the exact time where it's not going to be an issue for us. I would like a stadium. I think this city was meant to be where I build my nukes though. So I'll probably just buy the stadium for the amenities, because the stadium is over here. That hits at least 3 cities, so boom. There you go. 3 cities with plus 3 amenities, I believe. I could do the Estadio del Maracana. Nuclear device is kind of attractive, though. I like that plan. Level up a spy. I like con artist. It means stealing gold is very, very easy. This is the way I like to roll. Yoink all that gold. Sure, why wouldn't I become a YouTuber if I didn't like yoinking gold? Modern era ends next turn. We'll keep feeding those builders in. Boom. Moon landing next turn too. It's all coming together perfectly in the late game. I don't know, this is just the most satisfying phase of the game for me, because it's kind of where you get to see the fruits of all your labor come together for the grand finale. I would like a military engineer, but I have to buy that next turn because I kind of want to do a couple railroads. The world enters into the atomic era, and so too do we launch the moon landing. With the launch of the moon landing, I'm quite happy because now we're going to get the culture ramp that you get in the late game. I'm going to take out Merchant Confederation and plug in collective activism because that's worth 100 culture per turn. I think I don't need to change my policy cards for liberalism or anything like that. Sports media, maybe? No, I think it's fine. I think it's fine the way we have it at the moment. I think I'm happy with this setup. A little bit of production, a little bit of science, better builders, more amenities. And if you're wondering why I have the builder production card still plugged in, it's because when you're feeding builders into spaceports, the amount of production they give is actually relative to the number of build charges they have. So if you have 6 build charges and you have the pyramids and all that sort of stuff, which I think we do, we actually do have the pyramids. So the only way to get even more is actually to play China, which is also why China's +1 build charge mechanic is actually technically a science race boost, because they can feed higher charge builders into their spaceports, which means they get better returns. Now, if I'm looking at this, I reckon we take Heartbeat of Steam again. 10% production towards late game wonders, but more importantly, our campus district science adjacency has turned into production. And because we have the 5-year plan plugged in, that's doubling the adjacency of our campuses up to 6, and then that's getting converted into production. So if I go into Cairo here and I hover over the production, you can see we've got a +6 from campus. I'm going to promote Pingala all the way to the final promotion because that gets you a little bit of era score. It's also like a nice little achievement to do in a game. I'll send a spy to my capital as well. I'd like to protect this spaceport if I could with a spy. Boom, there's globalization as well. I'll swap out Visselbank and plug in the International Space Agency, which gives me 5% science, which turns out to be nearly 270% science because I have so many suzerainties. If you're wondering again, how do I see these numbers on my policy cards? You need to get the extended policy card mod, and then it has a sister mod called the Better Report screen. You need both of those together, and then you'll be able to see these numbers on your cards. Super helpful, super handy. Now, I have enough overflow culture from the moon landing. If you don't know, when you launch the moon landing, you get 10 times your science as culture. So I had about 1,000 culture or 1,000 science there. So I got about 10,000 culture, which allows me to kind of quickly research a couple of things. I reckon synthetic technocracy is now an upgrade for me. That's a 30% boost to all city projects and +3 power in every city. I do miss out on the communism thing, the production per citizen and the 10% science. But to be honest, at this point, 10% science is good, but it's not the most necessary thing. Look, if you look at this production from population, I'm getting 13 production from population. I'd much rather maybe a 30% boost to my production towards projects. So I will go ahead and pick up synthetic technocracy, and then we'll head basically straight for the late game. Once we have this decision made, our decisions don't matter. It is valid entirely to stay in communism. I just want to do something a little bit different this game. So we'll feed another builder in there, down to 9 turns on that. So it can be hard to decide to go to synthetic technocracy, because like 10% science is actually quite a lot at this point of the game, but I don't need much more science, and I'm really limited by production. And since I'm going for a science victory, synthetic technocracy feeds really well into that, because it gives me the power that I need. Don't forget, some space race projects actually take electricity, they take power. And the extra 30% production towards space race projects is helpful. We don't care about tourism, and we get a ton of wildcard slots, so we have much better choices on how we want to run our government. So I reckon you're usually better off going for this. Not always, but a lot of the time it could be worth it. I definitely want to keep in logistics. I care less about levée en masse. At this point, I'm making so much gold and have such a small army that it doesn't really actually matter. It might be good to get e-commerce, however. That makes your trade routes really, really powerful. Stadiums generating +1 amenity is quite powerful, because I think that amenity gets spread around. Autocratic legacy isn't terrible. I could plug in communist legacy, and then I still get the 50 or so production I was getting from that, which isn't terrible at all. Let's see, is there anything I could plug in here? I feel like integrated space cells should have been good, but it's not very good for me this game. I think I would take anything that gave me amenities at this point. So sports media is good. Oh, I completely forgot. Oh, I completely forgot to research the most important card. See, this was changed actually in the not too recent past. I forgot to research nuclear program, which allows me to get an insane amount of great scientist points. That's a huge mistake. Anyway, we'll grab that quickly and we'll change that next turn. I missed out on so many great scientist points actually. It's a rather large mistake. Boom, there's Science Foundations. This gives you 2 great scientist points per turn for every university, which is basically tripling the amount of great scientist points you get from universities, and you get +4 from every research lab, which is basically quintupling how much you get from every research lab. This is such a good card. Absolutely awful mistake that I forgot to plug it in. To put that into perspective, I was making 62 great scientist points per turn, so that number should have been like in the hundreds. And this is the last and most important tech in the game, the off-world mission. This will be actually what we use to accelerate our spaceship and win the game. Keep on feeding builders in. We're 2 turns away from launching the Mars colony, which means I think we're actually only 1 turn away. Because with another builder feed, we should be able to pull it off. 13 turns until the sea level rise. This is actually going to be the very first time I played in apocalypse mode, and I managed to win before the apocalypse happened. That's kind of baffling. It's never happened. Never, ever, ever happened. So I'm a little bit excited actually to potentially pull it off. I'm definitely well in the lead now. Only Montezuma has actually managed to launch the moon landing as well. And he doesn't even have nanotechnology researched. Whereas I'm already launching my Mars colony. So as far as I can tell, I'm super in the lead when it comes to science victory. So let's feed a builder in, and boom, that'll instantly finish the Mars colony, which is +4 era score as well. And now we've been holding on to Carl Sagan because he's worth 3,000 production, and the Mars colony was 1,800, but the exoplanet expedition, that is 2,100. So Carl Sagan now, the second we finish the Mars colony, we can instantly finish the exoplanet expedition, which means Carl Sagan has done his job. Once the exoplanet expedition is launched, we're now officially, the game has a timer on it. In 50 turns or less, we will win the game. So we have launched the exoplanet. It's traveling 1 light year per turn. And then this is where off-world mission is going to come into things next turn. So all things considered, it all lined up pretty well. So wherever I have spaceports now, I'll be switching over to producing off-world mission things. And now pretty much the only thing I should be building in non-spaceport cities is builders to feed into spaceports. Time to start spreading them around wherever it makes sense. We've got access to... What is that? It's a kraken. Oh my god. What is this? A manta? It's a manta ray. Look at that bad boy. Very spooky. Culturally, I'm not worried about anyone. I don't think anyone's going to win a diplomatic victory. Pedro's on 13 points. He doesn't have the time. I think we've got this in the bag now, which is kind of cool. So let's settle here on the uranium, and I'll probably just straight up invest money into the city. Never going to be useful, but I will just get it to build a harbor. It mostly exists to increase my uranium supply so I could build more nuclear bombs. Speaking of nuclear bombs, my first one is finished. So maybe as a celebration, once we win, we'll just start nuking someone. There's off-world mission, so now we have a way to spend our aluminium and our power, which is absolutely what we're going to be doing, especially because we get +3 power in all cities, which is essentially like a free off-world mission. So I think we'll start with terrestrial laser stations. I'll feed a builder into there, and then I'll finish the builder. So every time we build one of these two projects, either the Lagrange laser station or the terrestrial laser station, whichever one of them that we build, it will accelerate the speed of the rocket that we sent to some other, area in our galaxy. So right now we're traveling 1 light year per turn. It's time to come in here and start canceling all these. We want to be building a mixture of Lagrange laser stations, terrestrial laser stations. So we'll feed that builder in, and then we'll finish those builders. And I'm also using military engineers now to build railroads to my various cities, so that the builders that I do make can get around really easy. If you're ever wondering where your railroads are, you can actually just open up the map search and then do a search for rail, and you can very easily see where I've actually managed to build the little few chunks of railroad that I have already. And now we can start researching future tech, which will give us more score, as well as a 5% boost to all city projects, which includes things like the laser stations. We got our very first nuclear device. Let's go ahead and do Operation Ivy. I do kind of like the juxtaposition of us just recruiting H.G. Wells as a great writer and literally be sending an off-world mission. Alepsa is making me loads of builders, which I'm super happy about because I can feed them into my space race projects. So many popping off now. If you look at the range that this builder can travel, he can reach all the way down here. But if I come through and I maybe make another railroad here and then pop a railroad here, now he can reach, quite a bit further. He just needs a little bit more rail and I'll be able to get my guys down way further south really quickly. So rail just kind of speeds things up a little bit. Just make sure you're always putting your spies to counter spy on your spaceport districts. It's the best way to keep any negative consequences from happening. In terms of city-states, I don't think I really care that much about city-states anymore, except maybe for I really just don't. I guess Johannesburg isn't bad. A little bit of extra production in my cities is kind of cool. Auckland, I guess, is kind of cool for my capital because that's worth a few production. Like if you look in here, if I grab Auckland, it's an extra 8 production in here, which isn't bad. I guess I'll grab Mogadishu for the little bit of gold. I'll grab Venice for the little bit of gold. And you know what? For the sake of it, I'll also grab Mexico City. Because I believe Mexico actually extends the range of my building. So next turn you can see, yeah, look at that. The range on this thing is now going to be immense next turn. Speaking of range, do I have an industrial zone powering things over here? I do, but it looks like there's enough. Yeah, this coal power plant needs to be switched out actually for a nuclear power. Right, let's go ahead and now this is where things can get a little bit tricky. So I'm actually launching a terrestrial laser station in this city. So this is something you have to be very, very wary of. If I launch this will actually theoretically put this city over its power limit. Right, if I do this, right, launch, the city is now over its power limit and I won't make progress on my exoplanet expedition, right? I'm at 3. So you have to be careful about how you do things. And that's only true for the power one. So you never want to trigger the power one on the same turn. You never want a one turn a power thing. Or you never want to chop it out, if that makes sense. It's hard to describe, but it's like a weird little quirk of the builder rushing mechanic for space race projects. You have to be a little bit careful about the one that consumes power. Because if you look here, even though theoretically I should now be traveling 2 light years per turn, I should end up only traveling 1. Because power updates in between your turns rather than on your turn, so that's something you just have to keep in mind. Unless you build a renewable power plant source. I believe that's the only way around it. So for some reason Rome and the Ottomans declared war on me. But both of these guys are really, really far away from me to not even be a threat. I mean, I guess the Ottomans theoretically could do something to me, but my Air Force should completely keep me safe, unless he comes with giant death robots. Then it's a little bit scary, but I'll deal with that when the time comes. So yeah, you can see, even though theoretically I should have been traveling 2 light years per turn last turn, I only traveled 1. And that gets worse the more times you have terrestrial laser stations in your city. So it's only a really big concern if you're doing it that way. Otherwise, it's usually just kind of fine, and you shouldn't worry about it too hard. For the Lagrange laser stations that actually use aluminium, it's totally fine to trigger them on the same turn. I need to do an in-depth space race victory, because there's a few little weird quirks that a lot of people actually don't know about when it comes to space race victories. So in order to just show that again, if you're doing a project that uses the terrestrial laser station and you use a builder to chop it out on that same turn, you will not get the benefit of it, right? So right now I'm traveling 4 light years per turn. 2 of those are coming from Cairo. So if I chop this out once again, boom, that causes the city to go into negative power because it's using up power, and I didn't supply it with more this turn because power triggers the turn previous. Now the city's out of power and I'm only traveling 3 per turn. However, that will correct next turn. So I should be traveling more. It's kind of complicated. I don't know how to explain it. Did I explain it well enough? I really hope so. Let me know. So now the city is going to go back into being powered. Boom. The city triggers. Now it's in power. And if I go check this, we're now traveling the appropriate 5 light years per turn. So it's just something you have to look out for when you're doing this late game micromanagement. It could be worth it to actually delay a turn worth of production, or using a builder to actually snag a slightly more efficient navigation of the late game tech situation. Now, it's totally fine to launch Lagrange laser stations because they use aluminum. So that's actually not going to put my city into negative power. Let's get ourselves a thermonuclear device. We're very close to winning, actually. We're at 22 out of 50 light years. Plenty of spaceports finished. So really all we're doing now is just launching lots of these projects, trying to win as soon as possible. We're up to 7 light years per turn and we've got 20 left to travel. So there's only 3 turns left in the game. I always like to play it out to the end, though. I don't like to just shift enter end the game. For me, it's kind of fun to like still be playing optimally up to the last second of the game. It's kind of the same mindset that I play things like Dota 2 with. Even if I'm down 2 racks and the enemy have 10 levels on us, I'm playing like I can win. Because I really now occasionally I'm just not in the mood and I will just kind of like phone it in, or I'll just shift enter my way through. But I'm really a big fan of, like, until you see the end screen, you're in the game. Do you know what I mean? Because that's just the way of playing that appeals to me. So similarly, when I'm playing Dota 2 or any sort of competitive game, like if we're losing and one of my teammates is like, FF, surrender, anything like that, that actually infuriates me. Like, it actually, like, how weak and babyish are you? That, like, the second that things aren't going your way, you start crying in chat, asking people to get you out of the game, or saying FF, mid-fed, whatever. All that sort of stuff, that actually, like, if I were... in a video game, if I were to go to jail, it would probably be for punching someone at a LAN for typing FF if they were on my team. Like, legitimately, like, it would actually, like, it infuriates me. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, FF, surrender. I don't want to play this game anymore. Barbarians have spawned to my empire. No! Ah! There's only one way. There's only one way to defend against this. We have to nuke them. A scorched earth. You want to take my land? You're never getting it. It's my land. My land? Where did my other bomb... Did I nuke my own bomber? Wait, did I? Did I? No, I don't think I did. I used them both. All right. Can you deploy airplanes over... Do airplanes take radiation damage? That's an interesting question. Never thought about it. I think we win next turn. I always like to, like, right before I win a game, I like to look around and see actually how much rail I managed to build. Like, look at all this rail. Like, that's some fine railing right there, right? Your mom would be proud of me in a video game. Can I win yet? Have I won? 11 light years per turn. That is fast as F boy, right? That's fast. No! Oh. Oh, God! The turn that I win, the comments start dropping. Yes, it's like, oh my God. It's like, we caused the apocalypse. Peace out, brother. Then the fucking comments start dropping. Oh, man. And like the first one that dropped was on my city. All right, man. Let's check out our graphs. This is why people play this game. Hold on. I think I'm gonna remove my face cam for this because then you can't really see the graphs as well if I'm here. So I'll just like right. No face cam for this because I don't feel like resizing it or moving it. Buildings constructed. Now remember, for the vast majority of the game, we were on like no cities. And just look at our science. Actually, I really want to focus on the player science here. I got ahead on science on 4 cities. Because like if you look here, cities captured. I didn't really start capturing cities until turn 200. So just keep that in mind. And this first one I didn't even keep. I didn't actually declare war on Japan until like this last tiny bit of the timeline here. So if I come in here and we look at player science, I didn't start killing Japan until here. I was already ahead on science. And that's just because there's a right way to play when you're playing tall on how to optimize your science gain. Now, of course, we always have to have a look at the religions founded graph. It's always the most important one. And in this game, it actually illustrates a really, really important point when you're playing Arabia. You don't have to rush for your religion. You don't have to get your religion as soon as you get your great prophet. It's not a rush, okay? You can take your time. Think of how useful my religion actually was. I was able to get some pretty good beliefs. I was able to get amenities. I was able to, generate a decent amount of science. I was able to generate a decent amount of culture. Wars declared. I'm wondering how many units did we kill? We actually didn't even kill that many units, to be fair, this whole game. We mostly focused on capturing cities because that's how you win a war. And it was city, 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 city. This is the power of the late game bomber army. Once you get bombers, you just start. You can see here, I'm actually behind in infrastructure for the majority of the game. But just because I know which infrastructure to build and when to build it, really, really pops off. Player error score as well. I was super behind on that most of the game. Let's have a look. Total governors. It seems like a bit of a redundant graph. Total governor titles is a bit more interesting. Yeah, I popped off right towards the end. This is kind of how most of my games look, if I'll be totally honest. Like, I'm super behind for the first 150 turns, and then I'm ahead for the rest of the game, is how like 90% of my games look. Very rarely, if I get a very good ancient era or classical era war, I'll like climb up maybe around 120-ish. And I'm actually surprised that we built a decent number of wonders this game. Like, we didn't ignore wonders at all. We built a reasonable number of them. Like, comparable to the AI, which is very hard to do on deity difficulty. I'll readily say that. Player score. I love this as well. Look, player score kind of chipping along, and then it diverges. It just goes crazy. Anyway, that's going to be it for me for this episode of Civilization 6. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.